Hi guys and welcome back. So today I'm going to be showing you how I made my birthday cake. Let's begin. So to get started on the recipe, you'll want to make your cakes. I'm showing you 3 different cakes because they're all made with different ingredients, and it makes more sense to show you than just to do a blog post and go, this is how it's done. So you cream your butter and your sugar together until they are lighter and fluffier. Once you've achieved that, you can then go ahead and add in the eggs one at a time, beaten well in between each addition, and just keep mixing until they are. You do not want to scramble or split the mixture, as that would be the worst thing to do at this stage. Once the eggs have been incorporated, you can then go ahead and add in the vanilla extract and just mix this in again until it's fully incorporated. Then you can go ahead and add in the flour, salt, baking powder, and just mix this in on a low speed until it's fully incorporated and you have a cake batter that looks almost clear. Then give the bowl a good scraping down, and this is just to incorporate any bits that may not have been fully worked in from earlier on, so don't forget the very top and bottom of the bowl. Then divide the cake mixture between your 2 4-inch cake tins, which have been lined with some parchment paper, then bake them up. I will leave all the baking times, temperatures and measurements and everything else you need in the recipe, which will be linked down below, so don't forget to check it out if you are interested. So for the middle tier of the cake, I'm making a Biscoff cake, which is just a light brown sugar sponge rather than using caster or granulated sugar. You place the butter and the light brown sugar into a mixing bowl and mix until they are lighter and fluffier. Once you've achieved that consistency, you can then go ahead and add in your eggs. I mixed all mine together, but feel free to add them one at a time, beating well in between each addition, and just mix until they're fully incorporated. The mixture will go a little bit more liquid, and this is completely normal, so don't worry. Then you can go ahead and chuck in your dry ingredients, and then just mix these in until they are fully incorporated. And you want to try to not over mix, but also not under mix. Add in your vanilla as well at this point. Feel free to add it in with the eggs if you'd want to, and just mix the vanilla in until it's fully incorporated. Then give the bowl a good scraping down, and again, this is just to incorporate any bits that may not have been fully worked in from earlier on, so don't forget the top and the very bottom of the bowl. Then take some time to divide the cake batter between your cake tins. This is for the 6-inch cake, and I'm making 3 layers. So just keep that in mind. I'm using a scale to get more accurate results, especially as this is a tiered cake and it will need to be structurally sound, so just keep that in mind. Feel free to eyeball it, but I recommend using a scale if you can. So then to make the final tier, which is the bottom tier, it's the chocolate cake. So feel free to grab yourself a mixing bowl and place in your room temperature butter, followed by the granulated sugar or the caster sugar, I can't remember which one I used, but then just mix them together until they are lighter and fluffier in colour and consistency. This does take a little bit of time, around 5 to 7 minutes, but it's well worth putting the time in, as it will make a difference in the end result. Then you can go ahead and add in your eggs one at a time, beating well in between each addition, being careful to not add the eggs too quickly, as it'll split or curdle the mixture, and that's not what you're looking to do. You'll notice the consistency becomes more liquid, completely normal. Add in your vanilla and mix until incorporated. Then add in your dry ingredients, which is your flour, baking powder, cocoa powder and salt, and just mix those in on a low speed to start with, working up to a medium-high speed, and then just mix until you have a clear cake batter. And the final time you'll just need to give the bowl a good scraping down, and this is just to incorporate any bits that may not have been fully worked in from earlier on, so take the time to get those bits incorporated. Then divide your cake batter between your 8-inch cake tins, which have been lined with some parchment paper rounds on the base, and I'm making 3 layers of cake for this cake as well. So for the bottom tier it's 3, the middle tier is 3, and for the top tier it's 2, and this just works out perfectly for me. So to make the buttercream, you can go ahead and grab yourself a saucepan and place in the sugar. Then add in the water and whisk the 2 together until they are fully combined. Place on the hob and allow it to come up to temperature. That will be left in the recipe, which will be linked down below, so don't forget to check it out if you're interested. While your sugar and water mix comes up to temperature, grab yourself a large mixing bowl and add in your egg yolks, followed by a whole egg, and then whisk on a high speed until it's much lighter and fluffier in colour and consistency. You will notice the volume of the mixture does treble or quadruple. It needs to be almost white when you're ready to use it, and it should be pretty thick and be able to start holding its shape. That's what you're looking for, something similar to this, a kind of pale yellow or off-white. Then you can go ahead and steadily add in the liquid mixture that was on the hob, and just be really careful when you do this, as you do not want to get it on your skin, as it will burn and it will blister. Been there, done that. Then whisk until the bottom of the bowl can be touched with the back of your hand, and once it can, you can then start adding in your butter chunk by chunk until it's been fully incorporated. I just showed you how to make it once, but I did record making it 3 times for the different recipes, but you don't need to do that. It's the same process. So mix it, then give the bowl a good scraping down, and this is just to incorporate any bits that may not have been fully worked in from earlier on, so just give it a good mixing together, then you can go ahead and flavour it. For the Nutella cake, I added in some slightly warmed Nutella, and just mix that in on a low speed, and then turned it up to a high speed, and mix until it was fully incorporated, giving it a good scraping down just to incorporate any bits that may not have been fully worked in from earlier on. Then you can do the same with the Biscoff. I used a light brown sugar instead of granulated sugar, and then added Biscoff spread and just whisk that in until it's fully incorporated. Then for the peanut butter layer, which is a top tier cake, I just added in some peanut butter. I did use chunky, not a big mistake though, just adds a bit of texture. And then you've got all your... So when it comes to the decorating process, you can do it however you would like. I started with my smallest cake first, working my way up to the biggest cake, but you can do it again whichever way works best for you. So for the peanut butter cake, I just took a slightly bigger board, as the one I wanted for this cake didn't come in time. So then I did transfer it onto there a little later on, once it was delivered. But then you can decorate it however you like. I just put a small blob of buttercream in the centre, place the first layer of cake on a ring, fill that, level it out, then place your second layer of cake on top, and then pipe buttercream all the way around the outside, and then just smooth and level it out as best as you possibly can, or until you're happy. This would be slightly easier if you were using a smooth peanut butter, but I did get pretty smooth and I was quite happy with that in the end anyway. But again, you don't need to get perfectly smooth, it's as smooth as you'd want it to be, and I find using a meringue buttercream works really well for that, so just keep that in mind if you're decorating cakes. Once you're happy with how smooth the cake is, you can then go ahead and chill it in the fridge for around half an hour or 45 minutes, or until the buttercream is firm to the touch. This will make it easier to apply the ganache a little later on. So then to make the ganache, it's really simple. Take your dark chocolate and pour over the cream, and then just microwave it for about 30 to 60 seconds or until it starts to melt. Give it a good stir together or whisk together until you have a solid, smooth and glossy looking mixture. Believe me, you don't want to get this too hot, but you also need to heat it just enough to get to the right consistency and temperature. I don't really know what temperature it would actually need to get to, but the consistency is something like this. So once you're happy and your ganache is made, you can then go ahead and transfer it into a piping bag, then apply it to the cake. I did mine a little bit too thick, but in the end result it didn't really matter, and it tasted good anyway, so who cares. You can do it with a smaller drip if you just cut the tip of the piping bag smaller, then chill in the fridge until needed a little later on. It's the same process as earlier on, but this time we've got 3 layers of cake, so I'm taking the brown sugar sponge, placing it onto a board, just securing it down with a little bit of buttercream first, filling the centre with some buttercream, leaving a little bit of space, just to ensure that I can add in some Biscoff spread. I'm using crunchy as it'll make a great texture difference, and it really does in the end result, so just keep that in mind. Then place on your second layer of cake and press it down just to secure it, and do the same thing. Pipe a ring of buttercream around the outside, fill it with buttercream, add a little bit of Biscoff spread, then place your third and final layer of cake on top, pressing down just to secure in place. Then take your bag of buttercream and pipe around the outer edge of the cake and give a good coating, and then smooth and level it out as much as needed or as you're happy to do. So once you're happy with the smoothness of your cake, you can get rid of the jagged edge from around the top of the cake. You don't have to do this, but as seeing as this is going to be a stacked cake, you do want it to look a bit better, so just get rid of that jagged edge and you should be good to go. I recommend chilling the cake before you apply the drip, as when you apply drip, if the cake's cold, it just works that bit better and it'll stop it spreading down the cake so far. But before you do the drip, while the buttercream is still wet or tacky, you can go ahead and take some Biscoff crumbs and just apply a border around the bottom edge of the cake. This isn't, you don't have to do this, but I always feel like it just adds a bit of colour, texture, and just breaks up the kind of beige colour that Biscoff brings. Again, completely optional, don't have to do it, but this is what I would do, and I will leave it in the ingredients in the recipe, which will be linked down below, so don't forget to check it out. The cake had been chilled for around half an hour or 45 minutes, then I warmed up some Biscoff spread, placed it into a piping bag and just applied the drip around the outer edge of the cake, and I was very happy with this one. It's so easy because it's not a ganache, it's not as temperamental, so it works very easily. But again, a drip doesn't have to be applied if you don't want to, but I also fill the top with Biscoff and just spread and level that out. Then chill in the fridge until needed a little later on. So then for the final bit of cake decorating, it's the first tier of cake, so this will be the supporting base of the cake. Take your board, plate or stand and place a blob of buttercream on there and press your first layer of cake down just to secure it in place. Then top it with some buttercream. I pipe a ring first, then fill it. Then I just sprinkle over some chopped hazelnuts. Again, this isn't necessarily a step you have to do, but I like to add a bit of texture into my cakes, and this works really well. Repeat the process until you have your cake stacked. By this stage in the recipe, I'm going to sound very repetitive, but I feel like it's imperative to keep mentioning to people, when you do make a cake, it just sticks with you. That's what we was taught when I was at college, which I went to a bakery college. So pipe your buttercream around the outer edge and on top of the cake, and then just spread and level it out as best as you possibly can, or until you are happy. As you can tell, mine was not perfect. You could see a little bit of cake underneath, but this was my birthday cake, so I didn't really care too much about that. A couple of imperfections here and there is not going to affect it so badly. And for people who are like, but you have to, that's up to you. I'm not selling this cake, I'm making it for myself and I was happy with it, so I'm not going to make it perfect because I'm not. Then around the bottom edge of the cake, feel free to take some chopped hazelnuts, the same ones that you used inside of the cake, and just create a border around the bottom edge. Completely optional and you don't have to do this, but I really feel like it adds a little something to the cake and just works really well. Once you've done that, you can then chill it in the fridge for around 45 minutes or until the buttercream is firm to the touch. So the drip on this cake is some hazelnut praline spread that I had in the cupboard, and once you use up, I just warmed it up a little bit, placed it into a piping bag, then applied it like I did with the Biscoff spread, and it works really well and it spreads perfectly like this on a chilled cake, so keep that in mind. Just chilled cake works really well. Place some more on top, spread and level out and ensure even coverage all over. So I stopped the cake off camera and applied some decoration with the form of buttercream, shells around the outer edge, and topped them with some Ferrero Rocher halves and some chopped hazelnuts. This is completely optional, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I felt it added a little something, and because at the time I was feeling like I need to have a cake that shows that I mean business, and this was that kind of cake. Then for the middle layer, it was really simple. It was the Biscoff one, so I just piped some Biscoff shells but using a plain tip. Then just added some Biscoff biscuit halves, because the full ones would have been too tall. But again, how you decorate is completely up to you, so you choose how to do it, but this is how I did it. Then on top of the peanut butter cake, it was really simple. I piped rosettes and then used half of a Reese's peanut butter cup for each rosette, or in between each rosette. But again, you could use a whole one or use the minis, I'd recommend that, but I didn't have any at the time. But again, decorating the cake is up to you, and this is just how I would do it and have done it. So thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more from me, and I'll be back again soon with another recipe, so join me then. In the meanwhile, don't forget to check out the description. There'll be links to this recipe, a link to my blog and links to all my social medias. But that's all for today, I hope you enjoyed. Bye guys.